Kvaratskhelia. It's talking Reds, Neil Atkinson and Fuad Hassan. Kvaratskhelia, he's good. We'll get him out the way now that I've said it right, I think. We think I've said it right.
It's good, yeah. You have said it right. I think you remembered it well from 2 minutes ago.
Marvellous.
So well in.
Another crazy win.
He's good, isn't he? He's really good. I enjoyed watching him because he's one of those players where I think you get that with certain players who you know are going to be world class. But when they get the ball, everything looks so easy, and the way they glide and the way they can do these little nutmegs, these little flicks, the way they manipulate the ball, it looks so easy.
Yeah.
And you know, when we try it on Jericho Lane or in five-a-side, it's not easy at all.
Not easy.
But he was really fun to watch, and generally Napoli were a fun side to watch in general. I thought they had a lot kind of to them. You can see why they're top of Serie A, why they blaze through this group as well. It was a good game of football. I think it was the first time I've sat in the main stand for a while, and being able to see it from side on, you kind of got a great appreciation for just how hard it is to play against a side like that, where they are full of that kind of energy and that pace all over the pitch. That was something that stood out. I felt like Salah could never really get away from anyone because
Kim was excellent as well. Kim was really
excellent. They were all really good, and the shape. We saw the 4-3-3 again, and it was it looked comfortable in parts, but then also at the same time it sort of reminded me of why we don't play that anymore, because of how intense it is and because of how a lot of key components in that shape haven't been able to sort of keep that intensity up consistently throughout the season. The likes of Firmino, the likes of the midfielders as well, especially the running, the demands on that midfield is huge, and for Liverpool this season that's been difficult to kind of maintain on a consistent basis.
I can understand that, but it looked to me the best thing about it from a Liverpool point of view, and I think that Napoli are really interesting because I think the three centre midfielders have got really strong physicality, as you say, and by physicality I don't just mean big, I mean that there's pace in there as well. Kvaratskhelia himself is a big lad, he's a unit, and obviously he's got tons of pace too. Osimhen is he's a handful. He's a genuine handful, a real force in the game. Politano is a little bit different, a little bit more of a classier number, if you know what I mean. But they're able to be quite imposing. But the thing was, they were trying to be quite imposing, Fuad. And I'm not going to say they come off second best, because I don't think that actually happens, but I think over the course of the 90 minutes, Liverpool find the way to impose themselves, and I think the shape helps, because everyone knows what the job is, everyone knows where they're meant to be, everyone knows how to do the ugly stuff.
Yes.
And I think that, to me, is what Liverpool do really, really well, with the exception of 5 minutes after the disallowed goal. Liverpool do the ugly stuff really well in the game.
Definitely. It felt like the players were in the right spaces to do the ugly stuff as well. I think that was one thing that stood out, especially in that first half to me a bit. When they did win the ball, it felt like they were able to sort of gather the bits, make a simple pass rather than everything feel a little bit disjointed. And that's the thing, Jurgen says after the game, the first thing he says is about, this is what happens when you're compact, and this is what happens when you do play like that, and the spaces are, the way they're meant to be between the lines, and everyone's sort of in sync. And it's important to remember, I think, that was Napoli's probably their strongest side, or almost their strongest side.
So one or two centre mids they may well come in. I think that was centre mids where they decided, I think, to save the legs, and everyone else got to have a proper go at Anfield. So I think Zielinski doesn't feature.
No, he doesn't.
And I thought he was good at their place. So he's a good player, Zielinski. We've been linked with him for years.
Yeah. So I mean, they're not quite full strength, but it's
good enough, close enough.
It's close enough, and that Liverpool side was definitely not full strength, and you can hopefully take away confidence. I hope the players take away confidence from that and sort of remind themselves how good they are.
I think it is important that they take away some confidence and have that get back to that institutional knowledge of struggle. And I think you're more sympathetic to the idea of the physical imposition of the 4-3-3 in that I'm not. I don't for one second think you're wrong. I think you're right, and I think that the onus and the burden it puts on the midfielders is hugely significant. So I don't want to sort of downplay that, but there's a part of me which is, boys, this is what it is. If you want to be at the very elite of the sport, this is what it is for us in this moment in time. This is what it is, and this is what they're going to have to get through. And they've only got 2 more now before the World Cup, if we're honest about it, and that'll be a completely different, it's at least side for Derby. So it's 2 more now, and it's one big one on Sunday. And this is, and I don't want to play it down, because I've said for years it's unbelievable the graft they get through, the ugly work they have to get through. I think it's been underestimated, the toll it takes. Do not get me wrong for a second, but if you want to go toe-to-toe with Napoli right now, I still think, off the back of last night, one of the 3 best teams in Europe. If you want to go toe-to-toe with them, and Liverpool did, then that's what it takes.
100%. And I think it's first the graft, but then it's also, you know, making the best parts of the pitch shine and making the parts of the pitch that you want to shine. And that's Mo Salah to me. And he was interesting as well after the game, where he talked about, you know, I think the interviewer asked him about, you know, were you more comfortable playing at the shape? And he said, I have to be honest, yes, because we've been doing it for 5-6 years. So for me personally, you know, I felt like that was, you know, my best position, but obviously I'll do whatever I'm told. And I think that's maybe a little bit showing for other parts of the pitch where, you know, maybe the forwards are thinking, you know, this is a bit too weird. This does feel a bit unnatural. And I think the midfield bit is interesting, because I thought Milner was great yesterday. And, you know, he looked like a player who had that intensity that you know, we've been used to seeing in Liverpool midfields in the last few years. And I just wonder, you know, who still got that, because even Fabinho in parts didn't quite look, you know, completely back as his best.
There's a thing we do, but I think that there's all of it's always been, and I think it's important to remember that, you know, and I think that's part of the reason why he's wanted. So I think part of why he's wanted to change it more than anything else is there was a stat before we played City this season which said even allowing for 17-18 when City get 100 points, and even allowing for the COVID infected season for us, influence season, sorry, not infected, that's a terrible phrase. Sorry about that, genuinely. I very rarely say the wrong thing to such an extent. That's an awful thing to have said, so I'm sorry about that. There's the COVID influence season for us, that prior to when we played City, we'd lost one fewer game from 2017 through to the kick-off of that game. So at the end of that game, it's 2. Though we've made it up now with the results against Forest and Leeds. But we'd lost that. But ultimately, City had won 3 leagues and we'd won 1.
Yeah.
And in the period where we've been going head-to-head for those leagues is the key part of this. And I wonder if part of what the manager's about, and part of why he's wanted to tweak, change, however you want to frame it, is he's thinking to himself, I need to get one more genuinely attacking player on this pitch, because what we need to do is turn a couple of these draws into wins, maybe take a couple more risks in that way. And I get that, and I understand that. And where I'm ending up here, though, is that through those seasons where we have been genuinely excellent and put excellent points totals in, we forget how much of a risk-reward thing we do all the time. So there's a really good point about, for instance, I think last half an hour, our use of Thiago last night was insane. The number of times we passed to him when he was marked by at least one, if not, and then had another one coming to press. But what we did was we went, it's all right, we give it to him. We trust he's going to sort this out. And then actually, if he does, there's going to be space because he's drawn the men away, and then you go from there. And that's a micro example of the risk-reward thing. And what I'm saying about the overall picture is a macro example of the risk-reward thing. But I think that has been the mentality. But the flip side is, it sort of just suits us that way around. We suit the pressure cooker. We don't necessarily suit the tons of number 10s which City have got. We suit the pressure cooker environment, and we nearly get back to that. We don't quite get back to it because they're a good side, but we nearly get back to that at times yesterday. And I just think, like, it literally makes me happier. But that might not be the answer. Maybe I'm not meant to be happier, but I like the pressure cooker stuff. I like it when you feel like a side can't get out. I like it when it's physical. And maybe that's just who we are under this manager, if you see what I mean. And everything else is him trying to make them or make us or whatever be something that just not quite going to be.
Yeah. And definitely, I think there's loads of that, and I definitely feel the same way. The other thing that sort of sticks out a little bit is, I think when you are trying to implement new ways and new ideas, and this goes back to the start of Jurgen really, and you know, when this team really sort of took off into that next level, you know, you need that bit of luck early on when you bring in these new ideas to have who you want as your first 11 playing those games. And I don't feel like from the start of this season he's ever really had everyone he wants to be able to play this new way and to try this in the way that him and Pep Linders and his coaching staff imagined. And that little bit of luck, look, you're never going to have all your players available, but I think you just need it for that little spell at the start, or at some point where you can all confirm to yourself, well, this is how it looks.
And this is how it's going to work, and we feel good. So Salah, for instance, it's a little bit different for him, but he feels good because we're winning, he's scoring, he's involved. When that doesn't happen, he's like, can we go back to 4-3-3, please? Because I've got loads of positive memories and I know where I'm meant to be.
Exactly, and the Firmino thing is big in that, because I don't think the manager planned to play him as much as he's had to this season. And then, you know, he had another role, imagine, probably for Darwin to play in that position, maybe Jota a little bit more often. But he's now sort of been forced to sort of go back with him and use him probably more than he would like.
Talking about the ugly stuff, I liked Jones's performance. Yeah. There's a lot of people, so I want to be really clear about this. There's people who are trying to act as though the attitude towards Jones is an online phenomenon. Let me be crystal clear with you, it fucking isn't. It's hard to be Curtis Jones in that ground. And I found it infuriating at times last night, the response to him at times when he doesn't necessarily do something that the crowd feel is on, whether it is or it isn't. And I almost thought the manager half hooked him at that point because the crowd was beginning to get a bit tetchy. So I want to be really clear about this. When people say, and there's an attitude towards Jones online, but then often when the attitude towards Jones online is articulated as he wouldn't be in this side if he wasn't a Scouser. Trust me, we're fucking awful people. And we really demonstrated it towards Curtis last night. We are fucking awful people because there is this... It's the Scousers who are making it hard for Curtis Jones in the ground. It's those people, the people in the ground who've got little patience with him. And what I thought he did really well last night, Fuad, was the ugly stuff.
Yeah.
Getting it up the pitch, holding it up, just taking a minute, taking a breath, putting his back in, you know, all of that, being big. You know, all the ugly stuff is where I think he played the role pretty well. He gambles a couple of times on stuff at the back post, which is great, and I'm not against, but it's the ugly stuff he does well. There's a bit of a problem there because you don't get a rapturous round of applause or your name sung for the ugly stuff. But it was nice to see someone doing it in the front line, you know, and I was really pleased with his performance. I think he offered a lot, but he does not get an easy ride in that ground.
No, he doesn't, and it is really hard to understand because, you know, it's not hard to forget how young he is, and you know, all the injuries, all the inconsistency, and it's not just inconsistency of being in the team and being available. It's, you know, positions. A lot of times when he's come in, especially this year, you know, he's had to he's been moved about a bit. You know, he's in the front three, he's in a bit of a midfield two, then he's in a midfield three. So I think, you know, having all that inconsistency off the pitch and then having that when you're coming on is not an easy mix. The team's not in form. You're not coming into that positive environment where, you know, you can sort of absorb that and take it on. So yeah, I did enjoy his performance as well. I thought he was really good. I thought he was bright as well on the ball. There were moments in the first half where you saw, I think that's another thing, you saw the Curtis Jones that broke through the scene where people suddenly think, well, that's the bar, that's the expectation.
But he's not going to run away from anyone. And I think this is what we're all going to have to relax about. He's not, you know, in the middle of the park maybe, you know, he's got, it's not to say he hasn't got a stride, he has, but the point is he's not going to be quick. He's not going to be slow either, but he's not going to be quick. And I think that this is one of the things where it's funny watching us at the minute. When you play the 4-3-3 and in its absence, I've been thinking about it almost longingly a lot. You need three fellas up front who can all play number 9. Yeah, that's the part of it. But part of playing number 9 isn't just the idea of being like, say, Osherman is, where, you know, you can be physical, but then you can streak away. Another part of playing number 9 is at times just, as I say, awkwardly using your body, protecting the ball, letting people get up the pitch. It's not a fun version of it, but when at its best, when that was Mane, Firmino and Salah in the pomp, all three of them, if for circumstances you needed one of them to go and play number 9, in a classic way, they could all play centre forward. Curtis showed yesterday, I think, a lot of those qualities, but as I say, not the sexy ones, not the beaten three with tons of pace and then slotting it ones. Instead, the sort of the more rugged ones. I hope we start there against Tottenham, in that I hope if we persevere with the shape, there's a pathway there, but it also means you've got subs. The flip side is, Phil, I don't know what you thought, but I actually think in that sense, in the physical sense, in the ugly sense, I didn't feel like Firmino has a good game. I felt like a couple of times he couldn't get his body in front. You saw their pace and their power able to get on top of him. And this is the sort of the balance, as you say, when the manager doesn't have all the pieces he wants. At times there last night, and I'm sure he doesn't want Firmino to have played as many games as he has, but you need to have that physicality at all points, especially if we play the way we want to play.
100%. And you know, on the ball is one thing, but off the ball, you know, is always huge for this team. And that position specifically, you've got to be able to make ground and shift over quick and get from side to side, because you are part of that pack on either side. And I thought he does struggle a bit. He does seem to start fairly brightly, I think, and maybe that is a thing where it does come down to legs. But like you're saying, things aren't sticking as they used to in certain moments. Getting his body in front is a big thing, I think, where, look, they're good centre-halves, he's playing against, you know, high quality opposition, but you know, Firmino used to be able to do that. He used to be able to sort of play those little balls in and set people up. And I think he's not getting that first stage right, so then the second stage becomes a lot harder in terms of laying it off. And I think that a lot of that comes down to how much he's been used. I don't think the plan was for him to be used that much, and we're sort of seeing that now. Yeah,
he's been thrown at this first portion of the season, Firmino. Anyway, last night we did post-match pints. It's more than me, I'm afraid. I don't quite like it when it go over to me, but you know, you're gonna have to cop for it. Here's me.
I mean, they're a funny side at the minute, Cam. These are heads of ours. But for me today, I'm just sort of left going. First and foremost, it looked like a proper football team. 1, 2, it looked like a proper shape. Helps massively. You know, felt like serious progress. 3, felt as though they had a plan to how they were going to, if not win the battles all over the pitch, not lose them. Do you know what I mean? Like, for instance, the left wing is obviously tremendous, and he gives Trent a torrid time. but at no point does it feel terminal. You know, Trent say people help him up, they help him out, they back him up. He does all right when he has to. He hangs on to him. You know what I mean? Like this, and then Alexander-Arnold plays his football at times in the game as well, and stuff like that, which has just been lacking, and we got to see a big bowl of it tonight.
Yeah, definitely. It just kind of felt like going back to the old days of them bold European performances where you just had the plan, set it out, and just go from there. Go from that. Really, I thought their disallowed goal opened the game up a lot more for when the crowds made the crowds react, but it made the players react, which makes you think in the last 16 game, you know, anything can happen if the crowd's behind you, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was just back to basics. Fabinho was a lot better than what he's been the last couple of weeks. And yeah, it was just, we might have needed it. Everyone's saying, you know, dead rubber, there's not meaning, just put the kids out. But we might have just needed a game like that against a really, really good side. That just takes it back to basics.
Yeah, you get a bit of both. I mean, he's able to just, you know, to ease a couple of players in, give them a go. I think Elliott does really well when he comes on as well. But yeah, it's just showing Liverpool a template for this is how we can perform at our best where we are right now. And if sometimes that's not going to be good enough, if sometimes we're going to still lose games in the league, then so be it. But we are giving ourselves the best chance at the minute by setting up in a shape that we're all comfortable with, that suits the team collectively, even if it's not necessarily the best position for each individual player that you're able to field.
We're back. We are back. Here we go, said Sam off to one side there, so we are back. We might have looked slightly like rabbits in headlights, trust me, we're not. You've got to love the big fella.
Yeah, you do.
At all times. I quite liked the substitutions when he does the three, and you got to see that you could also call Calvin Ramsey the big fella.
Yeah.
He has a short person's haircut.
Yeah.
He's going to have to think about that. He needs to get the haircut of a much bigger man pretty quickly. Also, I like the fact that Bacevic is still the big fella as well. The thing about all these sort of prospects, 23 sort of downwards, you know, we end up with a lot of them on the pitch at the end of the game, is they've all got something to be excited about. You know, you say that about Elliott, you can say it about Carvalho. You wouldn't want them all on the pitch at the same time, with the possible exception of the game against Derby. By the way, I played the big fella against Derby.
Yeah, definitely. All of them.
Yeah, he probably won't, the manager, but I will. Jürgen, if you're watching the big fella against Derby, you just box that off for me. Only for an hour, but it'd be just fantastic to see. But the thing about Nunez is, I feel like I'm almost boring myself, but every time I watch him play football, I'm obsessed with the idea of watching him play football again soon. He is so effervescent.
He is, and that was sort of the question, wasn't it, in the ground? Everyone was asking, when's he bringing him on? When's he bringing him on? Because I feel like the game just needed a bit of him and a bit of his madness, really. He's funny. There's this thing building with him, isn't there, where he is, you know, really streaky, and I get it, and he's raw and all these things. But I think, you know, it's a bit exaggerated. I think he does a lot of things that are quite normal, and I sort of like the fact that he's around these moments a lot of the time, and you know, he gets booked in a mad way as well. I don't know what he quite does.
He shoved the lads over.
Yeah,
and he decided. I think the referee booked him because, and I watched the process. I think the referee booked him because the referee decided from some way out he's decided he's shoving him over here.
Yeah,
and genuinely that's what he did. He just shoved him over, but it was like I watched him go. If you'd have said to me what's going to happen in 15 seconds time, I'd have said he's going to push him over.
The hand was already in the pocket, reaching for the card. Yeah, and like the thing of him playing out wide on that left, I don't know. I'm liking it the more I see it, and I think I didn't watch loads of Benfica, but I feel like a lot of him was out there.
He did a fair bit,
didn't he? And I'm not sure if that just might be the way for a little while, because it's sort of allowing him to do other bits of the game, where he's not sort of purely, you know, having to be this guy who everyone looks to hold up the ball and to, you know, to make different sort of runs in behind and mess with centre halves in a different way. I think it might be a nice way for him to sort of get around in the side. I
loved the one which ended up with great defending, by the way, the one that went across the goal for Salah to tap in at the back post. I loved the way he just looked at the lad and went, "What are you going to do here then? Because I've got the ball and I'm me. And basically, I'm going to go there in a minute." And then it's like the lad went, "I know." It was the genuine football of, "I know, mate. Can you do it? Can you hurry up? Because this is embarrassing for all of us at this point." And he just went, bang, 3 strides, right across. And it was unbelievable, the defender, because he should put it through his own goal.
Yeah, he should. It's insane.
It's got own goal written all over it, that it's coming across. I actually presumed he hadn't touched it and Salah had missed it. I was surprised when they gave the corner, and then I watched the highlights back. I was like, I can't believe that little deflection. It was unreal.
Insane. It was insane. And he hit it with such pace as well.
Yeah.
I think this is one thing he's been doing quite a lot, hasn't he? These balls that come across are really hit hard. And you know, it's a matter of time before someone gets on the end of them. And I think if he keeps doing it, you know, he does have more to his game, I think, in terms of on the ball and his passing ability than maybe, you know, you hear about. And that burst of pace is really scary. I think, you know, a lot has been made of Haaland's burst of pace, the way he can get away from defence. I don't think Darwin's too far off in terms of the speed and that in that short space of time. And, you know, if everyone else can kind of sort themselves out, then, you know, we will see the best of him.
We will indeed see the best of him. You'll see the best of the Anfield Wrap. It's lovely to have got that win in the bank. It's a massive game on Sunday. It really is. Not least because, in a really strange way, for a side that are third in the league, Tottenham don't half look vulnerable. They really do look vulnerable.
They're not having fun, are they?
No, they're not having fun at all. The fans aren't having fun. I think last night's a little bit different, and maybe they'll feel like it's a bit of a turning point. But Tottenham look vulnerable. Liverpool have got to go there and show that, whilst we know we have been vulnerable, that sort of nonsense is beginning to cease. It is massive away at Tottenham. You're going to get all the build-up you need. Reaction from this one against Napoli, but in reacting to this one against Napoli, you are beginning to look ahead. You are beginning to talk about Tottenham. What can we do? Something similar there, hopefully, as we put in against Napoli. Just no gifts, Liverpool. Everything sensible. It's Fuad Hassan. It's Neil Atkinson. Impressed with all the big fellas. See you later.